All right, good morning everyone and welcome to the event that marks the launch of the Karnataka at 2047, a vision document for 100 years here at IIM Bangalore. We have a very distinguished gathering here today. It is my pleasure to introduce the main protagonists of today's event, Professor Rishikesha, the director of IIM Bangalore, Mr. Ramesh Ramadurai from the CII leadership team. He was the previous chairman and is currently the director of 3M Technologies. The authors of the document, Professor Pratik Raj, Professor Shankar Subramani, man of many hats and talents, Professor Anil Suraj from the public policy area, and of course yours truly, Professor Jitamitra Desai. You know, something remarkable happened yesterday in the world of sports. You know, for those of you that follow tennis, Novak Djokovic won his 23rd Grand Slam. Comes from a country called Serbia, which has 0.1% of the world's population, and yet they're able to generate a winner of his caliber. We have 17.5% of the world's population residing in India. Right? If Serbia can achieve a Grand Slam winner of that magnitude, what can India achieve? What are our possibilities? And as I pondered this, I asked myself, what is Karnataka? Karnataka andre yenu? Is it the people that live here? People are ephemeral, right? We live and we go on. So are all living beings and the denizens of this state. Is it then geography, landmass, rivers, dust and stone? What is Karnataka? And if we ask ourselves that question, the Karnataka that existed 500 years ago when Thuluva Krishnadevaraya was ruling the Vijayanagara Empire is very different from the Karnataka that we know today. Geography is not the answer. People are not the answer. So then what is Karnataka? Karnataka for us should define the hopes and dreams, the ambitions and aspirations of all people, of nature, of every denizen that lives in the state. Because fundamentally, most of those hopes and dreams, while some nuances may change once in a while, broadly speaking, these hopes and dreams of the people that live in the state have largely remained the same. Right? And what are those dreams? We want good infrastructure so that we can live safely and securely. Right? We want good public schooling for our children so that the next generation is more intelligent, better educated than the current one. Good health infrastructure so that people across socioeconomic backgrounds can then go to a public health institution and get themselves treated. Good roads, good transportation, good municipalities. Right? All of these and other components are the ones that make up a great state. These dreams and hopes and ambitions and aspirations of people are what define the state. Right? Now, if you view this from that particular point of view, right, how does one then begin to write a vision document for the state? There are so many conflicting priorities, so many complexities that we need to navigate. So what exactly comprises a vision document? We are in India's premier business school, and so I thought we can do with some management here. Right? For me, management is that frontier between growth and governance. Right? When we are doing management, no matter who the leader is, whether it's the CEO of a company or the chief minister of a state, right, you want to be able to do two things. You want to be able to grow the organization of the firm that you manage. Growth takes us into uncharted territory. It's a vision that the leader has, and you take us on that particular leadership journey. But while taking us on that leadership journey and while taking us on that visionary path, which we don't know, the unknown in some ways, we also have to govern what we already have. Because if we don't govern what we have, we are going to grow haphazardly. Right? So management for me lies at this sort of this boundary or the frontier between growth and governance. Right? Governance that takes us into something that's stochastic, not deterministic, that's something that's unknown, whereas governance that is more known, whereby we use the resources that we already have more equitably and make sure that we put ourselves on a path towards a more sustainable future. Right? If management indeed does lie at the frontier between growth and governance, in the composition of this vision document, myself and my co-authors have tried to address all of these different elements and more. Identified gaps in our state's infrastructure, pointed out ways to improve ourselves, and provided a pathway towards making Karnataka not only a globally renowned state, but a beacon of governance not only for India, but for all of the rest of the world. Right. Thank you very much for being here. I will now call upon Mr. Ramesh to give his opening remarks. This Karnataka document broadly is a vision for the state, but it sort of comes into, every state is preparing its own vision, and we sort of come up with a national vision. Ramesh will tell us more about CII's initiative in charting a national vision for 2047.
Now that we got the most difficult part of the operation out of the way. You know, technology can trip you up in many ways, and this is one, I guess. So good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. Professor Rishikesha, Krishnan, and your colleagues from IIM Bangalore. I think my colleagues from CII, a number of them are here today, so thank you for being here, ladies and gentlemen. So I have to say that I'm standing in for CII Karnataka's chairman, Mr. Vijay Krishnan, who's out of the country on business. So I think we all pitch in for each other when the other one is not available. So, but it's my great privilege to be here today. And this is a great milestone for me on at least two counts. The first one is more personal, okay? I think I'm, Rishi, I think I'm entering the hallowed portals of IIM Bangalore. If memory serves me right, I think I was last here as a student participating in the Inter-IIM meet 39 years ago. So it goes back a long time. So I'm delighted to be here, and the trees have certainly grown a lot taller, and I guess there are many more new buildings, which in the brief view that I could have. But the second important milestone is really the business at hand today, which is the launch of the Karnataka at 100 vision document. So CII has initiated this visioning exercise for the country at India at 2047, and this was kicked off last year. And broadly, we call it META. CII calls it META, which is morally, economically, technologically advanced India by 2047. So there are 14 different themes which kind of comes under this umbrella of the overarching vision for the country. And all the states pretty much are working on their individual vision documents as well. And for us in Karnataka, I think it is only appropriate that we come back and partner with IIM Bangalore, who helped frame the first vision document back in 2008. I think at that time it was India at 75. Professor Rishikesha, I think you were leading architect of that document back in 2008. So it's only very fitting that we tap into the tremendous capacity and the power that we have from all the folks at IIM Bangalore to help us with this. Any visioning exercise, can never lay down a clear path to the future. If you look back 25 years ago to 1998, and you look at where we are today, I'm sure, I don't want to state the obvious differences, but technology will take us in paths which we probably cannot comprehend today. We know we have a general idea of where we will go, but probably the specifics will come as we progress through these journeys. And that is why it is important that we not only have a vision document for 25 years, we also have periodic checkpoints along the way to see what might require to be calibrated, what might require to be revised, and so on. I think it's awesome to see this report come through, this document come through with about 9 themes broadly. I think even though I said that nationally we have 14 themes, some of them have been collapsed into 2 or 3 have been combined. But ultimately, Rishi, if I may borrow a couple of your words from your foreword that you've written for this document, it rests on the pillars of sustainability, it rests on the pillar of innovation, and these will be enabled by human capacity, human capability, and of course on a strong foundation of values and a passion for excellence, and a passion and commitment for excellence. Otherwise, I don't think we will get there. And the other one which we probably don't talk enough about is, coming from being in industry, responding to, responding to your results on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, there has to be a strong bias for execution. Because we can write the best documents, but there has to be a strong bias towards execution. And that is where, running an organization is so much easier than trying to bring together diverse diverse stakeholders on the same path. And I think a vision document such as this one helps align multiple stakeholders, multifarious stakeholders in government, in private-public partnerships, the NGOs, civil societies, educational institutions. I mean, all aspects of society are involved, and this serves as a kind of a rallying point around which we can agree to fall behind and then execute aggressively. So with that, I really want to thank Professor Rishikesha, Krishnan and the IIM Bangalore team for driving this awesome report, which has got tremendous, and you know, each one of those 9 themes that I talked about has very clear 3 or 4 actionable action points. So I think we can continue to build on this, and this will also serve as a guidance for the CII teams to engage with government and set the priorities as we move forward. I look forward to the rest of the session. Thank you so much for having me here.
Let me just build on what both Professor Desai and Mr. Ramadurai just mentioned. So I want to just take you a little back in time, and it was mentioned that I was involved with a previous exercise in 2008. A few things I carry from that experience I think are relevant even today. The first thing that I carry from that experience was how the younger generation, even at that time, was so particular and so concerned about the environment and ecological degradation. In fact, I remember from all the field meetings we did during the 2008 report presentation, if there is one point which came out from all the then youngsters who are typically in their teens or maybe in college, early 20s, they were all focusing on that as the number 1 priority. And it's interesting, if you just fast forward now to 2023, they were really prescient. I think they identified very correctly what was one of the most important priorities of the state. And I'm not surprised, therefore, that once again, in this year's report, that's a very important theme that has been focused on. The second thing which was quite apparent in 2008 and unfortunately is still true is the heterogeneity of Karnataka's development. And this again is no secret to anyone because it's widely known. If you just look at human development indicators across the state's aggregate performance may be whatever it is, which is not bad at all. But if you were to again look at different regions of the state, there is considerable difference between different regions. And if you want just that one indicator, which I found quite interesting from their study, it is that Bangalore urban alone accounts for 37% of the gross state domestic product, and whole of northern Karnataka is actually less than just Bangalore urban. So that if you're carrying one data point, maybe you should just carry that one data point in your mind. And it's, by the way, this is not that this is not known, it's very well known. And of course, the government has recognized this. There have been several initiatives, programs to develop the regions which have not developed that quickly. But certainly that remains an important priority even till this day. And I think that's quite well highlighted in the report. The third point, I think, which perhaps was not so evident at that time, but is very evident today, is that Karnataka in general and Bengaluru in particular have evolved as very dynamic innovation and knowledge hub. Bengaluru has evolved as that. At that time, it was in the making. I remember in 2008, but today it's very clear, particularly look at the data of the number of unicorns, or you look at all the multinational R&D and engineering centers, and Ramesh represents one company which has been at the forefront of all of that. So it's very clear that today, Bengaluru in particular has advanced significantly since 2008, and there is now a tremendous opportunity to build on what has been created already and to take the state even further ahead. And I think that's been highlighted very well in the report. So all in all, I think I think the challenge is this, and Ramesh, I think you touched on that very well. I don't know how it will look if comes in the media, but it's fine. It doesn't matter anyway. I think Karnataka is a very lucky state. Karnataka is a lucky state because lots of good things have happened for Karnataka without them necessarily having been deliberately thought about. Okay, I think that's the truth. We might as well face the truth. I think that's, and nothing not to do with any particular political party or government or anybody. That's the story of the last several decades in Karnataka. But how much different could we make it if we actually did something deliberate to build on that foundation that's been created? I think that's the challenge, and that's where the execution priority that you underline becomes very important. I leave you with just one last point. In 2008, when we were doing this earlier exercise, I read almost any Karnataka government report that was available at that time related to the themes we were looking at. So I remember I looked at the Karnataka Human Development Report, we looked at a Karnataka Agriculture Report, there was some report on industrial development, there were several, 4 or 5 key reports of the government of Karnataka. And all of them had an excellent diagnosis of the challenges faced by the state. What had been achieved and the challenges were very clearly documented. Most of the required data was there in the report. And even the recommendations in the reports, good number of them, most of us here would agree with. I mean, they were not, out of the world recommendations. They were fairly practical things. Fast forward to today, I think once again we have very nice vision which has been set out in the report. As Ramesh mentioned, we also have some nice corporate style 3 action points per theme in the report. But I think now, if CII and all of us really want to see this vision becoming reality, then I think we all have to prioritize influencing whoever is going to make policy and whoever is going to manage the state to actually deliver on some of those issues. So I suspect going forward that's going to be the main priority. And I think we all need to work together, whether it be CII, whether it be educational institutions, whether it be other civil society organizations, or for that matter, even political parties. I think we all have at the end of the day, we all have a common interest in Karnataka being a significantly better state than it is today, and it certainly has almost everything that's required to make that happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Rishi, for giving us a sense of history and for telling us, what needs to be done in the future. I would completely agree that there is while you can write vision documents, execution plays a huge part, and that's really where the challenge has been. Okay, now I will call upon the authors of the document in turn. So maybe start with Professor Anil. Take about a few minutes, about maybe 3 or 4 minutes, talk about your contribution to the document, talk about the document as a whole.
Good morning and welcome to this event from my own behalf. I think firstly, I must extend a wonderful note of recognition to the CII. This is an excellent initiative, and they are going to be collating Vision 2047 from across the country as well. But one thing that I strongly realized as part of this process is I got to know more about my own state, my own districts, my own neighborhood, and I think that makes me feel even more, in a very healthy manner, competitive, that my state should be even better than what it is, certainly, but most importantly on different parameters that I'm sure CII has outlined across, and 14 themes as we were given across the country as well. Karnataka was the first state to implement Panchayat Raj in the country. But I'm not sure we have been able to see the real fruits of that first mover or whatever advantage that we refer to. And I still believe that we are doing well, but that's more like a crying optimism. But surely, I think Karnataka needs to be the leader when it comes to that level of village governance, cooperatives movement, which also we have highlighted as part of the report. And we have had excellent experience when it comes to providing public utilities, especially in the not just rural, it is the distant when it comes to different terrains that our state has. And to that extent, I think that's an area that is often kind of overlooked when it comes to many priorities, and I think that's important to kind of recognize, and that's something that at least I realized while going through this process. No doubt, as people say, beyond Bengaluru is now kind of very commonly stated even by the Chief Minister, as well as ministers of Bangalore themselves make it very clear that we should look beyond Bangalore. Of course, it should be Bengaluru and beyond, because surely Bengaluru is contributing quite heavily to the state, so we cannot neglect. But more importantly, there's a lot we can learn from Bengaluru, which we need not have to go through repeating the mistakes in different parts of excellent cities which are now emerging as nodal or zonal, kind of leading development centers across the state. And that will lead to a lot of, I think one of the words that I would like to emphasize upon in the report is balanced growth. Right? We don't want it to be only in terms of per region. We don't want it to be only certain sectors. We don't want it to be only in terms of people who are educated alone who get the opportunity. It is also people who can be skilled very quickly and they also get as much opportunity. So I think balanced growth is the focus. That is the undercurrent of what we have been trying to suggest as the real vision of the state. And it is also about making sure that, it's a word which is used very often, but inherently when we say that it must be sustainable use of resources, opportunities, and the kind of talent that Karnataka has. And I remember we had a Zoom platform consultation with more than almost, I think, 200 members. The CII as well as the CII Youth Forum had organized it. And I must tell you, I can't put it in words, the kind of enthusiasm, the kind of, if I may say, the aspiration. Right? The aspiration of today, the people who are in the colleges, the people who are about to graduate in the next couple of years, that was a very rousing kind of impact that it had on us. And in fact, there was a pointed question we asked, what do you want to be and what do you want to achieve? And I remember a lady mentioning that I want to be in a state where I can feel empowered to achieve what I want to achieve. Right? It's not about me wanting to be a sports person or an artist, right? But I just want to dream. I should have that freedom to dream. I should have that ability to feel that, yes, this is a place where I can be what I want to be, right? And that's something that we have kind of captured in one part of the document. We believe that Karnataka is always with open arms. We welcome people, we welcome cultures, we welcome different, if I may say, different sectors. In fact, digital and technological advancements. Why only in Bangalore? People say it was climate, but I think today we are sure that is not so much the case. Bangalore is as hot, if not hotter, than many places that we used to traditionally talk about. But I think we need to relook and look within more strongly and try to build upon our strengths and be able to attract the best people as well as, of course. And I think one last point is we are not, in fact, we made a conscious effort not to look at it as an economic outlook. Right? We have used a lot of economic parameters, performances, indices, indicators, but we didn't want it to be like an economic outlook. This is how we raise investment. This is how we are giving priorities for the industry. CII is our primary stakeholders in terms of taking it to the industry. So we believe industry should look at this as how do we build the society in a more stronger manner in the state. And we believe that it is also priorities for the social organizations, the people, citizens, and of course the government. And it's not about economics, it's not about the economy, it's about social, cultural, ecological priorities. And I think that's what makes this document that much more meaningful. And certainly implementation, execution, I think we would like to take it to the next step. These are all feasible, these are all possible, these are most meaningful to go forward. But I'm sure we've got to do more work than just recognizing these priorities. But it's a great beginning. I thank the CII for giving us this opportunity, and I must say I thank all the team that we worked with. It was excellent. I mean, sometimes we used to debate, right, a lot of times saying that, well, why should we be writing this, why not that? And it was a wonderful learning process for me. Thank you.
Good morning, and rather I should say good afternoon. I've been going through this document over the last 3 months, December, January and February. My theme was to do with industry, that is manufacturing, hospitality and tourism. That's what was very close to my heart, so I chose that. As Anil was saying, that in preparing this document, we didn't go with the intention of economic indicators and saying that we are here, we should be there. I looked at it more from a holistic point of view and said, what are the key things that we need to do to change? So some of the things that really came up was that, today Karnataka is Bengaluru, right? Okay. But Bengaluru remains Bengaluru. Bengaluru is not Karnataka. So somewhere down the line, we don't seem to be, people in the world don't know what is Mysore, what is Mangalore, what is Davangere, what is Hubli. They know Bengaluru. So somewhere we need to take that thing out and tell the world, Karnataka is a great place. Just for your information, when I was researching on the industry, Karnataka has been the only state in this country to have got the maximum number of public sector undertakings when the government really set up. So in the 1950s, we had the maximum amount of share. We had the technology, the ITIs, the NGEFs, the BELs, the HMTs, right? All of them we had. Somewhere down the line, many of them disappeared. So my interest was to see how is it that we could revive that. So in my document, I've actually said, what are the steps that we could do to revive that? More importantly, the learning that I got out of this, talking to various stakeholders, especially in the manufacturing sector, was that we require more transparency in the system. There lacks a lot of transparency. So somewhere the executive needs to be more open. And the other important thing is decentralization. We require a lot more of decentralization happening. So that's where the state can improve. And this, the stakeholders said, giving examples of the other states, we were actually third 10 years ago. We moved fifth. That means 2 other states beat us. So we just need to find out why is it and what did they do better to beat us. All that they did is what they decentralized a lot. We still control everything in Bengaluru, which is not a very good state of affairs. We need to decentralize a lot. And this is what manufacturing told me. And of course, there are whole other things of developing clusters, right? And one major gap that we really found in manufacturing was skills. Everybody today is referring to IT. Right? You talk to any person, he feels that I should get into the technology space, should be there. But then somewhere we require a lot of interest in engineering. We require a lot of interest in science. So the stakeholders, basically the students, said that we need to move away from computer science, AI and MI, and then get into hardcore manufacturing, hardcore engineering. That was one major learning that we got. So transparency, decentralization and skill development was something that was there. When it came to hospitality and tourism, very, very strangely, the government is not spending enough to develop, which is a mega earner. We contribute a phenomenal amount of money to the exchequer in terms of hospitality and tourism. but the amount that is being spent for infrastructure development by the state itself was extremely low. It was about some 3% of our GSDP, which is nothing. But the amount of money that we earn, right, is phenomenal. I don't want to quote statistics. The only thing that we need to push, and probably the CII should be able to help us in the tourism business and the hospitality business, is to somewhere tell the government, please recognize this as an industry. Today the government doesn't recognize hospitality and tourism as an industry. And because it doesn't recognize it as an industry, we don't get FDI. So, and it takes a lot of time for development. The moment we get it as an industry, then I'm very, very sure that a lot more people will fund it. We will be able to get loans, we should be able to get a lot of money from the banks and other financial institutions. So CII somewhere should help this to push and say, listen, please recognize as an industry. The other important thing is that there are some excellent, think tanks in the tourism industry and the hospitality industry. They have given some phenomenally fantastic vision documents, but somewhere those visions have been lost. In our vision document of 2026, tourism 2026 document, we lost that. So this is what the stakeholders had to say. They said that, listen, please, take our recommendations and implement them. So that is one thing that we need to look at insofar as tourism is concerned, because it's a phenomenally fantastic earner, and it gives a huge amount of employment. The amount of employment that tourism is generating is substantially high. To give you some figures, tourism is contributing approximately 11% to the state employment. 11% is a phenomenally high number, which means to say that if we were to provide the necessary infrastructure, we should be able to grow that. A. B. Serious skill shortages in the tourism hospitality industry. Somewhere something needs to be done. A phenomenal amount of education needs to be provided over there. And this I'm trying to copy from a state like Uttar Pradesh, where Uttar Pradesh is seriously focusing and putting in a lot of money into tourism development and hospitality development. The number of institutions that they have opened to just grow this thing is what is driving a lot of people to get in over there. And you will suddenly realize in Bangalore city itself, if you were to look at the people who are actually serving you in most of these restaurants are actually people from UP and the Northeast. They are focusing very heavily. So somewhere we should do this. So the only learning that I got from hospitality was, A, must make it an industry so that we get more investments, and obviously skill development. And we should also have what the industry is actually recommending. The stalwarts in the industry are saying that let's have very, very specific themes of tourism and develop those themes rather than just going all over. And of course, they continue to hold on sustainability, which is precisely what they are fighting very, very hard not to open up the Western Ghats. There's a lot of amount of problems that we are having in the Western Ghats. People want to industrialize that place. Hospitality is saying, please do not do that, leave it as it is. And that is something we must focus very hard upon, so that that Western Ghats belt that we have in our state needs to be protected. So that is one important learning that came up. To conclude, the entire document was a phenomenally fantastic exercise. There's a lot of things that we need to do. And I just like to leave this thought. We speak so much about the vision and so on and so forth, but we really need to do something. We need things specific, actual specific, and So the only way I can help you remember that is, see, you can't throw your spouse out the window and say love is in the air. We need to be very specific. We need to think, in order to show love, you need to do something very specific. So I'd like to leave you with those thoughts of saying that, let's put all of this into action, and I seriously believe that whatever we have said, hopefully should get translated over the years into some action. I must thank CII for giving me this opportunity to be part of this document so much. Thank you very, very much.
So I'd like to talk about the cover. So it's a vision document. So that implies that there's a vision that should be in your mind, because it's very likely that after this session and after having read the document, in some time we will forget about what is there in the pictures of this, in the text of it. But so we worked a bit on the picture of the cover of what do we want to represent in this vision document. And thanks to Mayank, who's our media person, helping us with designing. So we developed this cover, which wanted to bring the key elements of this vision document, which is what you remember. So one of the things that we noticed in other vision documents is that there's a lot of focus on Bangalore, and there's some fancy skyscraper, etc., made in those vision documents, or there's industry in it. But we are talking about 2047, when water would be a major crisis for the state. So one of the important things that, which was very evident in the stakeholder analysis, it was also evident from a lot of surveys that people of Karnataka are constantly talking about water. And if you're talking about vision for Karnataka, maybe water is more important than GDP, that we are a water surplus state. And it's a state which has a paucity of water. So we wanted to put water in the cover, very importantly. And we also wanted to bring in sustainability, because this is 2047 we are talking about. So we wanted to make sure that there is a greenness to the whole vision document. So that's why we selected a picture which is water with forests and a road passing by, so that there is a sustainability. So the vision that you get is that that's the kind of Karnataka we want, which is harmonious, which is green, which is sustainable, where there is water, rather than thinking about how much iron we produce. I mean, that's one way to think of it. The other element which was important to us, which came evidently very clearly in the stakeholder engagements, was that people felt that the state has had a haphazard development, where a lot of development has happened in Bangalore, and quite often development of Karnataka has become synonymous to development of Karnataka, to development of Bangalore. So we wanted to, and then there were issues of the fact that, well, who will implement this vision? Would it be the government? Would it be CII? Who's the stakeholder? And it quite became evident from a variety of sources, including how we think of economic growth, that it has to be a decentralized effort from a variety of stakeholders. So that's why we have that wall of different faces of people from Karnataka to represent that this is a vision document for the people and by the people and of the people, where they have to be the primary stakeholders. So when you read through the document, you will find that again and again, the document talks about decentralization, it talks about empowerment. A very important role is played by the media, where the media has to be the checks and balances. So that became very important to us, that this is not about a government organization or just an industry body or a university that has to be at the forefront of it. It is an invitation. So that's how we frame it, that it's an invitation to all stakeholders to build a green ecosystem for the state. So we are thinking about ecosystem, we are thinking about the state. One of the expectations that people usually have with a vision document is that there's a GDP projection. But one of the things that we felt is that we are not sure if in 2047 GDP will be an important number for development. And given that it's 25 years down the line, it's very likely that people will start questioning if GDP is even an important number to think about, because GDP does not count a lot of different types of externalities that an economy may produce. So we have to have a more holistic vision, and that's why we decided not to provide some projection of the future, of this is the number you have to be at in the future to be a rich country, because even if you have $5 trillion economy of Karnataka, which is possible, it still does not, if you don't have water, it doesn't make a difference. So that's why we wanted to systematically shift our focus to something more holistic. This is also relevant in the fact that Karnataka is in a very unique juncture where, unlike every other country in the past that has developed because of economic in the past, it has focused primarily on economic development, on producing more and more and more. But India, and especially Karnataka, because it is a leading state, has a unique challenge that it has to grow through sustainability, which is something that no other country in the world has done in the past. Every country has basically generated enormous amount of waste and expanded its GDP, and then now they're talking about sustainability. While we have to think of sustainability as an opportunity and do our growth and sustainability together. So that was a very special, that was the, so for me, that was the challenge, that how do you take whatever we know about progress and development until now and merge it to this challenge that it has to happen in a sustainable way. That's where the focus of sustainability comes, and that's where the focus of innovation comes, that it has to happen through innovation, that our state has to become a frontier state for sustainable development. So I think that's, I just wanted to get one of the points.
Thank you, Pradeep. Being a quantitative person, I could not have imagined that that cover of that document would have so much thought that goes into this, so it was fantastic to hear this. I will just finish this by saying that the one last component in that vision document is education. We are in an academic institution. Education, of course, plays a huge part in terms of developing the state for the next 25 years. And again, the message that we got when we did all of these surveys with the youth and so on was that academic leadership in the state has broadly come once again only from Bangalore. Right? You have the Indian Institute of Science, you have the Indian Institute of Management, National Law School, IIIT Bangalore. Pick any renowned academic institution, it resides in Bangalore. Right? I mean, like any institution in Karnataka resides in Bangalore, and that again is that dichotomy that we are talking about. Bangalore doesn't represent Karnataka and vice versa. In fact, one of the more concerning things is over the last 5 years, if you look at the reports, and there's some data that's been shared in the vision document, while we have invested more in higher education, we've invested lesser in primary education. Our investments in primary education have been going down, and we've been using that money in some ways to be able to fund higher education. That is very concerning because we are a young country, we are growing, and that I don't think leads us into a very promising future, right? I mean, we have to invest in both, right? Primary education makes the large part of our masses intelligent, knowledgeable, ethical people, whereas higher education leads us into innovation, sustainability, gives us all of that creativity that we require. So I think investments in both of them are equally important. This was one of the things that has been highlighted in the vision document. We should be conscious of that and make sure that we push the powers that be into making sustainable investments that give us a population that can drive the state into the future.
Thank you. Spur of the moment kind of a opportunity, but I just flipped through the report, and I think my specific brief is to talk about MSME and the concept of one product, one district, which has been mentioned in the vision document, is very, very apt. We have to decentralize. Bangalore obviously is the magnet for as far as manufacturing is concerned. My own personal case, I have relocated from Mysore to Bangalore. I am in the manufacturing space. Why? Because things happen in Bangalore, whereas other places, a lot of push and effort is required. Having said that, developing clusters in the next 5-8 years, one product per district, will start creating the ecosystem for people to be in the respective areas, and that could to some extent stem the influx into Bangalore. The other thing is that the other point that was mentioned about primary education, a lot of the children make their decisions whether they want to join agriculture or they want to join the police force. Incidentally, in the rural areas, joining the police is one of the sought after ideas for children. So the point that when you have more and more industry going to the corners of Chamarajanagar or going to the corners of Kalyan, Karnataka, it will spur a lot of local innovation. It will bring the costs down. Obviously, there's a lot that has to be done from the government in terms of infrastructure, in terms of working with the cities, and allowing for the transfer of the information and the knowledge, know-why, and etc. So I'm extremely excited that this concept is there. It has been talked about. But end of the day, MSMEs have to be throughout the state. It's only then we will see quantum leaps in innovation. It's when people start coming here, they try to fall into the groove that is set here, whereas they innovate in their own locations. Things could change quite dramatically, and of course, with digital enablement, a lot of things can happen in a much faster way. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you. I'm now going to invite Professor Rishikesha and Ramesh to please come and unveil the document. If there are any questions from the audience, we're happy to take them for a few minutes.
Impacting crores of people right now. So, how do you envision the impact, the economic and the social impact of these guarantees in the coming days for Karnataka?
Anil, you want to take this?
Yeah, in fact, we have also looked through some of the manifestos because, as you know, this happened to coincide with the time of the state elections as well, so it was a good opportunity for us to see how the political parties are looking at it. While the guarantees are a more specific, if I may say, promises that are now also being implemented, I think broadly they're all clued into, most importantly, gender-based focus. Right? That's a very important aspect. What about what really matters to the people in terms of, for example, electricity, or in terms of making sure that there is not just the urban household requirements kind of a thing. So to a large extent, these also resonate with larger priorities that we are looking at. But surely we haven't, to answer your question specifically, has there been any evaluation of what any such specific scheme would help? No, the vision document does not spell out any specific scheme, but these schemes, these guarantees and promises do resonate with the larger priorities that the state needs to look towards.
Also, other question is, Bangalore is the hub of so many institutions of eminence, national importance, and we have the top institutions here, but still the infrastructure is still poor. So despite a lot of collaborations happening with government and other agencies, still we see very poor infrastructure, right from roads to the street lights. So where exactly is the gap? Whether there's no synchronization between what the institutions present and execution. So where exactly is this problem?
Ramesh, you want to take this in terms of execution?
Go ahead. I can, give you attempt to give you an answer in terms of what, I don't want to dwell on what has been, because that we all know. Where we are, we know. Yeah, this is probably easier. For some reason that was echoing back in my ear. So going forward, I do believe that can I speak without the mic? I'm having a hard time because this is echoing back into my ear. So in terms of execution, going forward, I think one of the important aspects to enable that is socialization of these vision ideas. Broad socialization, not only in the portals of the institute or within CII or industry bodies, but there has to be broad partnerships and collaboration with different stakeholders. So what happens is then when there is broad understanding of this amongst different sections of society, the pressure, people are then held more accountable for delivering on results. So in fact, I was asking Professor Krishnan on the side, saying, what can we do to more broadly socialize this document? That is something I think we as CII, in partnership with several institutions, we will have to take actions to do that. And one, it also creates a broader consensus amongst a broader awareness, understanding, and then finally consensus. There will always be differences expressed, which is great, which we have to continue to iterate and incorporate. But I think as there is more broader ownership or agreement with this alignment to this vision, then people are also more accountable, which will help accelerate implementation. I mean, it is a kind of, seems like a more philosophical answer to your question, but we've seen that happen in many companies, even at a micro level, company which is operating in 50 to 70 countries, it takes a while to get some things to implement it, to get them implemented. But yes, you do it with much greater socialization of what you want to accomplish.
I think the report actually mentions one or two points on that. One thing the report points to is the need for change in urban governance structures. I think this is something which has been underlined for years and years now, but it's something that it's a crying need, particularly when such a large percent of your state economic activity is happening in some urban hubs. Then how those urban hubs are governed becomes critical to the broader progress of the state. And even in India, there are some states which have taken the lead in modifying their urban governance structures.
And just to add to what you are saying, one of the biggest challenges that we are having today, I mean, this is what came up from the study that I had, is that we do not have appropriate metrics, right? That is the biggest thing. We don't have appropriate metrics, right? Example, I mean, when you are saying Bangalore is bad in infrastructure, what is good infrastructure? For example, when you compare Bangalore with a city like Indore, right? Why is Indore a cleaner city and why not Bangalore? Because in terms of cleanliness ranking in the country, Indore seems to be number 1, while Bangalore seems to be some 18 or 19. Way ahead, far away. Why? The reason is because Indore has got much better metrics. If there is a pothole, how fast are you going to cover it? So one of the key things for development is to develop metrics. So somewhere, all the stakeholders need to come together and develop metrics for various, departments of the government and say this is the way we'd like to go forward. So one key thing that I like to highlight is development of metrics.
You're going to submit this document to the government, or do you have any plans for that?
Yes, we do.
That is CII. CII hopefully should be doing that.
I think he had a question. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm glad Professor brought up metrics, because as we spoke about general themes, what can't be measured can't be improved, yes. Right? And I'm glad he brought that up. From a sustainability perspective, there are quite a few approaches, and the world is trying to solve this problem. What are the key metrics that we should be looking at? And that was the question, because there has to be some North Star that we have as we move ahead, and it's important that we measure.
Yes. So one of the key things that came up when I was doing the study and asking, fair enough, you asked me saying metrics. What metrics do you want? Now, the most important metric that people wanted from was response times. What is the response time? So can the administration and the government set certain guidelines saying that these are the response times? 1. All right. 2, they wanted to know what is going to be the qualitative effort that the government is going to take, not quantitative effort. The qualitative effort that the government is going to take, when I mean government, I'm talking about the administration, right, is going to take in order to ensure that this particular thing is acted upon. For example, I'm making an application to the industry, to the government, saying, please give me licenses. Right? What should be the response time and what should be the qualitative approach? Is my application correct? Right? Where is it wrong? So on. So these are the 2 important things. One was in terms of response times. So if we are able to improve response times, we should be good. Then people know saying you're good or bad. 2 is qualitatively. So which means to say a lot of proper data capture should happen. Example, many of the government applications don't capture all the data. So therefore, consistently you have to go from one department, another department, another department. A single window clearance system could probably ensure that all the necessary data is captured so that you can go from the power department to the water department to the fire and safety department to the industries department, but to the local BBMP department. All of them have the data in front of them. So the dashboard is open. Everybody just clicks on giving permission. So qualitative improvements are needed as part of the system. This is what is my thought and what has come out from speaking to various stakeholders.
I think there are plenty of metrics, no shortage of metrics. I think your whole sustainable development goals are metrics, for example. And that's what the government is using across different levels as one of the important frameworks. So I think finding the metrics shouldn't be that challenging.
Just to add to it, I think metrics, IIMB giving out metrics of these are the good metrics would not be the best practice also if we are also talking about decentralization of governance. So to some extent, the matrices should be decided by local authorities of what they deem appropriate, because metric for development for Yadgir would be different for metric for development for Karnataka, for Bangalore. And this, so even who sets the metric is a difficult question to answer. And to sum it, like one of the main recommendations that we have, which is to some extent distinct from others, is the emphasis on local government, is to emphasize that there should be mayorships in the future. So that's one of the key themes of the vision report. And in the end, it will be the mayorships or a local government that should be deciding what the metric should be for them, keeping in mind the broader vision of sustainability in mind. The other thing is also about investment, that we have made specific things like health, education, and R&D as 3 places where GDP investment should go up as a percentage of GDP. While physical infrastructure is something that needs to be improved, we are not saying that the investment in that should go up, in the sense that it should be high, but these 3 other things. So one is that thing, that how much is the budget percentage of GDP going into R&D, for example. If you want to be an innovation hub, we have to spend enough. So that also links to, for example, this whole OpenAI debate, that is India located to do be competitive in AI space with chat GPT, etc. And the question is that it will be if in case we invest enough. And at the moment we are investing very little. And if we want to be competitive, which we have to in the next 25 days, our investment in R&D needs to go up. So those are some broader macro matrices that we need to keep a track on, because unless we spend on health, education, R&D, these capabilities that we are talking about will not go up. So we do provide pointed things to do on that front.
We should take the last question.
Thank you. Pratik, you want to give a vote of thanks?
Yeah, so thanks a lot for coming. This was a pretty exhaustive exercise for all of us here at IIMB and CII. So I'd like to thank Rishi. I'd like to thank CII leadership. I'd like to thank Radhika, Parvati for providing this kind of support to kind of get these various stakeholders together and to get their feedback. So that was really eye-opening for us to get that sense and feedback. Also, of course, to all the authors here, and at the same time, authors who are not here, who, for example, Professor Srini, Professor Arnab, Professor Tilochan Shastri, who provided individual contributions in areas of their expertise. Mr. Daya Sindhu, who provided feedback on innovation. So this was a very interesting exercise in the sense that we had grassroots feedback. We had survey conducted by the CII. So we had the support of the whole logistics of CII. And we had domain experts who helped us contribute to the document. And then we, of course, combined it all together. I'd like to also thank Ms. Kavita for providing the media support for the launch of this event. And Mr. Mayank for creating the cover design. So it has been a lot of people who have come together in doing this particular event. And it's a lot of people that it would be very difficult to thank each and every one. So anyone else that you would like to mention, Radhika?
Maybe if I can just take the liberty of jumping in. I think you did refer to a lot of the folks from CII. I think there were so many of the CII members' leadership, not only from here, but also from our different zones, whether it's Mysore or Belgaum or Bangalore, Hubli, Dharwad, etc. And then, Young Indians, YI is represented here, so is the IIMB, the Indian Women's Network wing of CII. So I think there's been a number of folks, so I'm only representing, Radhika, Parvati, myself, we're all only representing the broad strength of CII. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.